Welcome to our first installment of our fall camp positional previews. Today, we're going with the quarterbacks led by Heisman candidate Michael Penix. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Huskies, your daily podcast on the Washington Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Huskies. Thank you for making Locked On Huskies your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am Tomashoff. That is Lars Hanson. We both write for Sports Illustrated and Fan Nation with Inside the Huskies. You can check out all our work at si.com/college/Washington. And be sure you subscribe to Locked On Huskies. Leave us a 5-star review. Like us. Subscribe to us on YouTube, leave a comment, whatever. We would love to know your thoughts on the show so far, as this is show number 5 now, Lars, so it's technically a full week of doing this. And I felt that to help fans get through these next couple of weeks before the season starts, that we could do a little bit of a positional preview, where we were just at the open practice yesterday on Sunday. We're recording this on Monday. And we got to see a couple of fans around. We can get into a discussion about how there should probably be more fans at an open practice, especially when it's held on a Sunday. But we wanted to talk a little bit about each position, because we got to watch 6 practices as members of the media before they start to shut things down and start to just get into real install and real season prep, which, for many different reasons is understandable why they wouldn't want the media around for those things. But one thing that we were around to see was a couple days where Michael Penix just kind of threw off to the side and wasn't necessarily at 100%. Ryan Grubb said that even if he's at 99%, we want to make sure we take care of him. So we didn't see him throw for a couple of days. But as our graphic says here, Michael Penix for Heisman? Lars, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a little bit of a shame that he didn't get more consideration for that last year. And I think they started off the campaign last year for this year, I think, if we're being honest, because once it was known that Michael Penix was going to come back for this season, it was like, okay, everybody's coming back, so we need to start that campaign early. And thankfully for Penix, they got two pretty decent tests in their non-conference slate. They're not top 25 tests in Michigan State and Boise State, but I think that's 2 good tests for him to kind of get some notoriety, especially with that game on the East Coast. The earlier that pub can happen for him, the better his chances are going to be to sustain that, because we all know who the other candidate is. And I think it's going to be as somebody that has to kind of solidify themselves going into October, because once you're in October, then you're kind of right there. And I think if Penix can make it through September, which I have no doubt that he will, I think he's going to be in that conversation throughout the year. It's just I have a hard time seeing him fall off, even if, other teams scheme around him and find a way to disrupt him. He's just proven, especially in this time at Washington, to find ways to get guys the ball, and no matter who they are and no matter what position they are.
No, you're absolutely right. The nation's leading passer from last season. And he's such a special player, man. And I know we talked about it a little bit on yesterday's show that before he took a couple days off, we won't say he was injured because they just said his arm was sore. There was no injury. He was throwing up the ball at a higher level than we saw at any point last season. And he was just putting the ball wherever he wanted. One thing, I said it to you the other day when we were just hanging out at practice, was he's throwing from different arm slots at a more consistent basis now. He does. It's not. This is. I understand what I'm saying when I say this. It's Patrick Mahomes-esque in the way that he's throwing from every arm slot. Matthew Stafford does it does a lot of the same things. He's not doing it at that level. Relax, but he's doing it at a very high level, and he's doing it at a very consistent basis, to the point where it's just something else that he's added to his bag. He's healthy. He looks to be a little bit more mobile. Obviously, they're not going to want to have him run a ton with the knee injuries that he's had in the past and just being generally banged up. Just want to make sure you keep him safe. But being able to get out of trouble, to use his legs, and then being able to throw off platform, off balance from a variety of different angles is just so important. And the fact that he's added that to his game, I think, is going to be really, really helpful for the Huskies this season.
And that's what was interesting to watch him during the couple of days that he had off was he was still right behind Dylan Morris and Austin Mack when they were taking their reps. And even before both of them would throw it, he's pointing. He's saying, hey, go here. And I think actually it's a smart move on the coaching staff to save the arm, but to still use the mind. It wasn't like he was just off, kind of chilling, not wearing a jersey, no practice, no nothing. He was still staying engaged. And I think actually for Mike, that's where his mistakes came into play last year when he was forcing it against UCLA, when he forced it against Oregon State that had the pick 6 right before
Oregon as well. Yeah,
right.
No, you're correct. Yeah.
And the Oregon one was almost as the most egregious because of what time it came in the game. Right. And I think that's what Grubb has been I think he harps on that more than anything is the mental approach to the game, which again is what Michael does so well, what makes him such a good passer and one of the best in the country. But anytime you're not taking a live rep or you're not taking a snap, you still want to be executing your mind. And so I think he didn't miss a beat on that. And all the other throws that he was seeing, I think that'll kind of allow him to not only save the arm, but to actually use his arm better. And I think to your point about the arm, the arm slots, when he's not behind center, he's able to see the field more. And that's how he gets, because I think it's fair to say he's one of the more creative quarterbacks uniquely in the country. He doesn't strike you. He's not Caleb in the sense of he's not as fluid of a runner, but he's almost more creative in terms of, okay, I can't do that, but I can do pretty much everything else. And I think
you're absolutely right.
That's what makes him right there.
I want to touch on one thing you said, because one thing that I feel like I noticed, and the Oregon interception, because I just want to talk about the interceptions he threw last year, where there were a couple that were unlucky, some bad bounces, but all the ones that he threw that were, you can just say, yeah, that's on Mike. This is what happened here. They all came from a point of overconfidence, in my opinion, and being able to see those things, because the Oregon one is one I point to in particular, because he made that same throw. I believe I can't remember if it was on that drive or one of the previous drives, but he made that same throw on a very similar concept, just from like 10 yards further back. So the defense was a little bit more spread out. He had a little bit more room to fit the ball in. And then when the defense is compressed, obviously we saw what happened. But I think that still getting him the chances to read the defense and see everything that's going on, because as you said, he's taking the shadow reps. He's back there. He's watching everything happen. That's all awesome. And the fact that he's able to add that to his game, and the coaches have told us that this is a higher level of install than they were at any point last season. So I feel like there are going to be a lot of new things coming for the Husky offense this year, where, the concepts are all going to be the same, but they're probably going to run them from different formations. And we might see a few different trick plays. We saw one on Sunday during the open period of practice where they lined up Jalen McMillan at quarterback. That'd be fun to see. I'd love to see that. But I think all I'm saying is that there are going to be extra wrinkles in the offense, and Mike is not only going to be as prepared for that as anybody else on that offense is, but he has the skill set to help an already great coaching staff take everything to another level with what he provides on the field.
Absolutely. And to that point, I think one thing that I took away from last fall camp, and the reason why I'm bringing it up is because the fact is right now, is Jackson Kirkland said one of the things that allowed Mike to take such a firm grasp of the offense and win the job over Dylan was because of the way he was communicating with the offensive line and understanding those concepts. It's not just, okay, how am I seeing the defense? It's no, how are you setting everything up? Because Washington, it's not just a read, look, go. It's a read, check, or go check, go read. There's so much nuance to it that you have to be able to master everything. And it really is kind of impressive when we take a step back to look at how well Michael has done in his year plus at Washington.
No, absolutely. And I also just want to take a second to just, as we wrap up here, to talk about his arm talent, because he just puts that extra zip on the ball. And it's really just to watch him make some of these deep throws, like the Arizona touchdown to Rome, and just the way he's able to force the ball down the field into just spots where only his receiver can catch it. It's really impressive. Some might say he puts a little bit extra hair on those throws. And speaking of hair, we got to talk about Nutrafol. Lars, did you know that 80% of men will experience hair thinning in their lifetime? It's normal, but it doesn't have to be your fate. You can get ahead of the thinning with Nutrafol. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist-recommended hair growth supplement, clinically shown to improve your hair growth, visible thickness, and visible scalp coverage. Nutrafol's hair growth supplements use physician-formulated, natural, science-backed ingredients. Their drug-free, patented technology provides consistent, reliable results without compromising your sexual health. Go to Nutrafol.com/men to take their health wellness quiz. Identify causes of your thinning hair, and Nutrafol will give you a personalized plan for better health through the whole body wellness. Nutrafol supports healthy hair growth from within by targeting root causes of thinning such as stress, hormones, environment, nutrition, lifestyle, and metabolism through whole body health. And it works. In a clinical study, 84% of men showed improvement in their hair after 6 months taking Nutrafol's men hair growth supplements. And to take the first step towards visibly thicker, healthier hair, for a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off their first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com/men and enter the promo code LOCKEDONCollege. Find out why over 4,000 healthcare professionals recommend Nutrafol for healthier hair. Nutrafol.com/men, spelled Nutrafol.com/men, and enter promo code LOCKEDONCollege. That's Nutrafol.com/men, promo code LOCKEDONCollege. Yeah, you know I had to get that extra transition in there. I'm very proud of that one. Now, let's talk about the backups. Dylan Morris and Austin Mack are going to be the two guys that we cover in the segment. We'll get to Will Haskell, the transfer from San Diego State, in a couple of minutes. But I feel like we really need to talk about those two guys in particular because they're the two that are competing right now or I wouldn't say competing for second and third string. Dylan is second. It looks like Austin is going to end up being the third string quarterback, but really, I feel like we can each take one guy here because I really want to talk about how much Austin Mack has impressed me. So because Dylan Morris is second string, I'm just going to hand it off to you and let you talk about what you've seen from Dylan this fall.
Yeah, well, I think the thing that really is underscored about the whole Michael being off for a couple of days is, again, not to keep harping on this, but he hasn't played more than a full season once. Dylan has also played a full season once. So they've equally played as many full seasons each. And I think for Dylan, he needs to be at Mike's level or right near it for anything. For if Mike wants to come out for a series or even for a play, you need to have that guy right there. And Dylan's always been a capable leader. I don't think anybody's ever questioned his leadership. The only thing we've always looked at is his decision making. When he played in 21, he forced a lot of balls. Even in 20, when he got his opportunity, he just seemed like, and Kalen DeBoer used the term gunslinger. It's kind of a cliche more or less than anything else.
Yeah.
But Dylan, I think, I'm sure you would agree with this, Dylan has really controlled that in his time under Kalen and Ryan Grubb. I think he's been able to see the field better. I think partly that is the scheme that kind of that Grubb runs that just allows guys to see the field better, but also having Mike in the room and learning from everybody because we learned that Dylan wants to be a quarterback coach. So I think what made Jake Browning also kind of in that similar mold is they had such a firm grasp of everything. So Dylan getting last year to have the grasp of the offense and to see how Mike ran it, now he's been able to run it pretty well. Here's the thing. When he throws an interception, it's not really surprising because everybody's usually getting picked once. We've even seen Mike throw an interception or two, but it's because the defensive backs are making better plays. So I think that's actually what you want to see. From Dylan, I just want to know how far is that gap because I don't think it's as far as people think it is. I'm not saying he's going to be a Heisman Trophy winner next year, but I think he has become a lot better than what people used to know him as.
He's definitely impressed, and especially when he got that chance to work with the first team offense, you could see it. It's not. I think there's still a very significant gap between the two, but you're right. It's closed a little bit, and one thing that you said was kind of processing decision making, and that was one of the first things that I want to talk about with Austin Mack because Ryan Grubb told us the other day that he's been really impressed with his ability to stand in the pocket, make big throws when he's needed to, and just the way he's been able to just progress through his reads and just bang, 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 just really, really quickly. And for a 17-year-old true freshman who should be at Folsom High School right now and be probably on the precipice of getting his fifth star, like that's what should be happening. But no, he's running install with the second team, and it's truly impressive. There's still knocks to his game. The biggest one for me personally is something that, there are times where I feel he sits in the pocket a little bit too long, and Grubb said he wants him to be able to get out and use his athleticism a little bit more at times because there are times where he just kind of sits there and sits and sits and sits. And it's great that he's going through his progression so quickly. And it's also great that he's not just at the first sign of trouble and nobody being open, just panicking and running. Both of these things are really good. But there are times where he's just sat there for a couple seconds too long and taken some sacks just through some of the team portions that we've been able to watch. And again, he's 17 years old. that's fine. These are things that are going to happen. But on the other side of the coin, his arm talent is mind-blowing. Would you agree if you said that raw talent, it's more impressive than Penix's arm?
Oh, I think right now, no, but I think the potential. I think to your point, once he gets maybe a little bit bigger and kind of just feels in his body, I think he has a higher ceiling from an arm perspective than Penix. I think if that's
kind of the point. Just raw potential. There's more there, and that's such an exciting thing. I understand that Husky fans are, oh my God, is he going to do this? He's going to do that. He's going to have a chance to compete for the job next year, in my opinion, which is what we'll get to next. And I know tomorrow, just a quick to make sure that all our everydayers tune in tomorrow when we talk about the running backs. Just make sure you're there for that, because we're going to have some fun with that one too. But there's a real chance that he's going to be at the same level as Dylan Morris when it comes to just knowledge of the offense, chemistry at this point next year.
I agree in principle with that, with the only caveat being he's not going to have as many live reps. And I think that is going to, at some point, kind of catch up to him, to where Dylan's going to have 2+ years in the bank of experience in this system, and plus another additional year of running an offense at the college level. I think for Mack, there is a chance he could beat him out. I would just kind of go into that with giving the edge to Dylan and saying, hey, take the job from Dylan.
I totally agree.
I can see Mack doing that, but I think Dylan's going to go into that ahead of him.
I agree with everything you said, except for one thing. You called John Donovan's offense a real offense. That's an issue that we're going to have to discuss.
I do want to add, I didn't say it was John Donovan's offense. I said he got a real year of college football. It wasn't the best. It was not a good year, and it was not a real offense. But to Dylan's credit, he has played under the lights in college, and let's be real, getting that game in Ann Arbor, that's a pretty big, especially given that Washington been going to
he played well in that game too.
And I think that's the thing. It's, if you had even a half competent offensive coordinator in that game, Dylan looks a lot better. The running backs look a lot better. Although we have to remember, he was without his 3 starting receivers.
Right.
Dalen was hurt. Rome was hurt. Like, there were so many other things that went wrong in Dylan's first season that he's so much different now. Even if you take away the 2 top receivers this year, I think Dylan's found an ability to where he knows what he can and can't do, but what he can do, he can execute pretty well in between kind of the margins. And I think that might be enough next year for Washington, because with this offense, you don't have to have the greatest arm. The reason why Penix is so good and why the offense was as elite as it is because his arm, he can put it anywhere on the field. Dylan doesn't have the ability to do that, but I think he has the ability to put it in certain spots in the field. The only question is going to be, is that better or worse than where Austin's going to be at? And again, I think the person, and kind of as we're going to talk about in the last segment here, we're forgetting one other quarterback that isn't eligible this year, but could actually be a factor next season. And again, this isn't a knock on Austin Mack. I just think there's no sense to rush him.
No, you're absolutely right.
And especially with Dylan wanting to be a quarterback coach in the future, I think it wouldn't be the worst thing to have Dylan come off to the field and have Austin be the one giving him the signals, and just kind of going with that. And then if Austin happens to win, or if Dylan happens to get hurt, or whatever the case may be, then you can have that discussion. But I think Austin would be better to learn from Mike and Dylan back-to-back years rather than learning from Penix and then trying to kind of put it all together really quickly.
I see your point. And, with that, I think we should move on. And, we can talk about Will Haskell to start, because this coaching staff really likes him. Yeah. They're pretty high on him. And I just want to give everyone just a quick flashcard description of him. Will Haskell was a JUCO transfer who went to San Diego State, played a little bit at San Diego State, and that's why he's not eligible for the 2023 season. He's got to sit out with the waiver requirements, I believe it is. Shout out to whatever's going on with the Zach Durfee one. Whenever there's an update, you'll know right here on Locked On Huskies. There's another plug for us, or Inside the Huskies. We'll probably have it up there pretty quick too. Yeah. But it's something where the coaching staff is really, really high on his potential. He's a dual threat kind of guy. He has a big arm, and giving him this opportunity to sit and learn in the offense is going to be really crucial. Because Lars, when we were kind of prepping for the show before, one of the things that you said to me was you wanted to say that the quarterback from 2024 is not on the roster. And then I had to kind of remind you of just, well, what about Will Haskell? He's kind of the missing piece in all this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was kind of the thing, is that we almost forget, because Will's not eligible this year, he is still on the roster, because he announced his decision to transfer really, I think it was right around media day, or right kind of after. I don't know if it was before or after media day, but it was pretty kind of quickly in that ballpark. And it was one of those.
There was no woof, by the way.
Kalen was slacking. Kalen was slacking. We just got to call it what it is. Kalen slacked on that one. But it was an official commit, and it's an official scholarship quarterback. Those are the two key discrepancies there. Because Alec Johnson, the other quarterback on the roster, he's still a walk-on, unless I'm mistaken on that.
No, you're correct.
So he does have junior college experience, but he's a walk-on. There's a gap between those two. And I think the thing with Will is his college path is kind of, this is the best case scenario for him to be like, look, get into the right offense scheme, learn from two really good quarterbacks, one Heisman potential quarterback and one who's been able to play at this level, and kind of just put it all together from a mental perspective, because physically he can do it. I don't have any doubt physically Will can do it. I just need to see that, again, almost the word that we're going to harp on for everything with Washington is consistency. All the pieces are there. It's just you have to be able to do it 1 to 10, not 1, 2, 5, 7.
Right. And this is a complex offense to learn from the quarterback standpoint.
Yeah.
It's something that you can see it when you turn on the film a little bit, that they run very similar. They run around a similar concepts, but they run it from many different places. They'll run, and that's one of the fun things that I like about just watching Ryan Grubb call plays. And I'm sure this is something that he's learned from Kalen DeBoer, who's also got a lot of experience calling plays, is they're not afraid to call anything anywhere, which is just so much fun. Like it's just so cool to see. But from a quarterback's perspective, that can be really hard. There's so much they have to take in. There's so many different formations. We're running this out of this formation. Okay, I need to, take a second to wrap my head around that. And that's why giving him that time off is, because we'll probably see him at a full go next spring. Yeah. And that's when we'll definitely start talking about the quarterback competition. I feel like we didn't give Penix enough love in the first segment, but at the same point, we know what's going to happen. We know how good he's going to be this year. So I don't necessarily feel really bad taking a lot of the time to talk about the future, because that's very important, especially with the Big Ten and everything like that. But when we see Haskell at a full go, I feel like he's going to open some eyes, and, there'll be a couple open practices, and people who don't necessarily follow the team very closely, I'll be like, wait, who's this guy? Like, Mack is going to, in my opinion, still going to be the talk of the town, and just yeah, there's Austin Mack. Yeah, we know a lot about him. And then wait, this guy's also really good. There's something going on here.
Well, I mean, let's go back to the last quarterback competition we had, where there was Michael Penix, there was Dylan Morris, and there was a legacy child that everybody loved. I'm not saying Austin Mack is the legacy child that everybody loved, but I think it's kind of worth reminding fans, hey, there's no need to rush that. Because here's the thing, whether Austin Mack gets 3 years or 2 years of experience in playing as a starting quarterback in college, it's kind of been proven that you only really need 2. I mean, we look at Caleb Williams. Yes, he had the freshman year at Oklahoma, but really he's going to have 2 under Lincoln, and he's going to go to the NFL. Michael Penix
under Lincoln, because that is still
the Oklahoma year, yeah. But in terms of as a full-fledged, okay, he was the guy. Because if you think about it, Caleb came in off the bench for Oklahoma a couple of times.
Yes.
As a freshman. So it wasn't like he was the thrown-in guy. They all, again, much like Hewitt, everybody knew he was going to be the thrown-in guy. Similar to Austin Mack. Eventually he's going to get his flowers. He's going to get his time. But I think for this offense, and I think to your point about how what's the word I'm looking for? Complex it is, you need a veteran guy to do that. And I don't think it's the worst. And I think to all this whole point, that's why you want to get all the guys in the room right now this season, because you're not going to have Penix next year. So to have Austin come in a whole year early and learn from Penix, whether or not he wins the job next year or even plays this year, or even is more than a scout team guy this year, it doesn't matter. Just to have him around the room, because it's a lot different if Penix is kind of on the way out. He's graduating. He already graduated, but when after the season, he can come back and visit a practice and talk to Austin like that. But that dynamic is not the same. So to get all these guys in the room and to get Will at the same point, hey, how close are you to Dylan in terms of your understanding of this offense and physically and all that? Getting all these guys in to learn from Penix and to learn from each other, and also to learn from Ryan Grubb, because he got a few offers last offseason among many coaches that got offers. And one really, 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 really big one down in Tuscaloosa. So I think it's worth noting that the amount of time, you can't take anything for granted. So the way the staff is approaching the quarterbacks is, I think, perfect. You know who the guy is. We know what Penix is. We know if he's not top 5 in the country, we'll be surprised in terms of passing yards. Sure. Whether he's 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, he's right there. Much like in the Heisman, I think he's going to get a seat in New York. Whether he wins it, I think that's where the money comes into play in terms of, hey, does he win, or does Caleb Williams win, or does Drake May surprise everybody and kind of become that third guy, or do they go Marvin Harrison? But I think
that'd be fun.
It's pretty clear those are or Brock Bowers, got the same thing.
Sure, that would blow my mind.
But those 5 guys, I think, unquestionably are at the pinnacle of college football, where they are the guys at their positions, especially for Caleb and Michael. A lot of people don't still kind of acknowledge that for Michael because it's all the way up in Washington. But I think, again, to my point earlier, when they go through September and they win in East Lansing and they beat Boise State, and obviously Tulsa is not that much of a challenge. But if you're able to
don't say that. People said that about Montana.
Okay, that was also John Donovan's offense, and Jimmy Lake was running the program. It's a lot different story.
Fair.
But I think if you can get out of September, I think the East Lansing game is going to kind of, because that's where the tables turned last year for Michael in the offense, and really the team in general. When they beat Michigan State pretty handily, it's like, oh wow, this is the team we should be talking about, not Michigan State.
Right.
One finished 11-2, one finished 5-7. So I think this year Michael is now going in with the wind at his back, saying, hey, okay, now. But here's the thing about Michael, and I'm not saying it's a challenge to win the Heisman for him, but his personality is so it's chill, it's great. He's a great kid, but he's never going to be the guy that's like, hey, I deserve this, I deserve that. He's just like, look, I think my play is going to let me get there, but I'm never going to be the guy beating the drum for it. So I think that is the only way that the Heisman question comes into play, where in terms of him not getting a vote or not getting a seat at the table, because he should, based on his play and based on how the team does this year.
No, I totally agree with that. And now, just as we start to wrap up here, I just want to take a second and I want to give you the floor, and then I'll go, because I feel like I already said it, but I want to give you the floor and just say, just 30 seconds, who starts in 2024 and why?
Right now, I'm going to give the edge. I'm going to give the edge to Will Haskell, but I think Dylan Morris, I'm going to give it to him just based on physically. I think he's the better of the two between him and Dylan. I want to say Dylan's going to give him a run for his money, and this is not to discredit Austin Mack. I just don't think the time is now for next year, because if UW wins a national championship or even gets to the playoffs this year, they're going to need to keep that momentum going, and I don't see a reason to say, hey, let's throw in an 18-year-old Austin Mack under center to see what happens. It's like, no. I think if Will proves what he's capable of and what I think he's capable of, he's going to be the guy.
So I'm going to stick with Mack. I do agree that I think Dylan wins the job, but I'm going to stick with Mack as my pick, and here's why. Let's say that scenario happens. They make the college football playoff. Yeah. I think that everything that Grubb, who is somebody who's never one to mince words, especially when talking to the media. And when he talked about his processing and his understanding of the offense for somebody who's 17 years old, that's something that really made me raise my eyebrow and say, oh, that's really interesting, because he has the arm talent. He has all the intangibles that you could ask for. And if he is already understanding the offense at a level that the coaching staff is surprised and impressed by, that's a good thing. And giving him that full year to sit and, just say, okay, yeah, because this is the thing, right? If it's just very, very close between him and Dylan Morris and Will Haskell, why not give the edge to the guy with the most eligibility? Is kind of where I'm leaning with that, where it's, this is where the coaching staff can say, especially, we can say what we will about Ryan Grubb, who might be here, might not. That's a different conversation. But with Kalen DeBoer, who seems like he's in this for the long haul, he can just kind of say, yeah, Like I trust this guy to be able to take us to maybe 9-3, maybe 10-2, whatever it might be. And because he has all the same intangibles and he can do maybe even a little bit more with his arm to help the offense. And I just think that's something to think about. Now, it's time to wrap it up. Lars, thank you for being here. Thank you to everybody for listening. All you everydayers out there, make sure you like, comment, subscribe on YouTube, wherever else you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, all those other places. And be sure to tune in tomorrow when we start talking about the running backs. And again, please leave us a 5-star review. We really appreciate it. It's very helpful for us. We'll see you tomorrow.